we'll get back to that later. That was after the shooting, before the shooting. Oh, well, he associated with the Kenosha Guard, and they're a white supremacist group. No. One, there's no such thing as the Kenosha Guard. It was a Facebook page. Someone said, hey, they're tearing our city up. If you have weapons or whatever, come down and help defend our city against looters, because of 71. And the reason why he put that page up, I think, it was somewhere around the time where a 71-year-old man got beat up by a bunch of white guys.
Mm-hmm.
So how is Kyle Rittenhouse answering that call an example of him being a white supremacist? And the reason why is because this is an age-old thing. Ever since I was a kid, I noticed this. And it's a very honest thing about an element of the left. I'm not characterizing the whole left, but there's an aspect of the left that realizes that no one is ever going to embrace their stupid politics because their agenda sucks. What they want to do with the country sucks. Okay?
Yeah.
And in general, people with sense, including most black people, don't want anything to do with the hardcore white progressive movement. So what they have to do is, when they try to go up against the conservatives always win for various reasons. Number one reason, they generally kind of preach leaving people alone. They don't always do it, but that's generally their message. So people will pick them they'll pick the crazy right over the crazy left because theoretically the crazy right will leave them alone at some point. So what they do is they say, okay, well, the only way that we can get people mad enough at the other side and the people that we don't like that they'll hang with us with our lousy agenda is to paint them as racist. And if you notice, this Kyle Rittenhouse thing is the end of, to me, it's the end of a generation that started back in 2007. You remember when Ann Coulter got attacked when she was trying to speak at a college? I think it was back 2008 or something.
Right,
and
yes.
Then well, that's been going on for the last 12, 13 years, where it's and I've read the Antifa handbook. I've actually
really?
I buy things I disagree with. I have Mein Kampf. I have Joseph Stalin's manifesto, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I read it, and there's two different schools. There's an Antifa school that says you gotta leave people alone. You just gotta stop people from hurting other people. But there's another Antifa school that says, no, you get to decide if certain views are not appropriate for this world, and you have the right to physically shut them down no matter where they are. And that is part of the European Antifa mantra, and that became the more dominant mantra for a lot of people. Where in Europe, they were just saying, hey, if you start getting up there and start saying something right wing, we're going to come and beat you up. And that's just that, you know? And I think those people actually helped Le Pen and Lafarge and all those other people come to power, because I think it scared people into embracing the other side.
Well, they absolutely did, and because if you go to one extreme, it's just human nature to look to the other extreme to counteract that.
But it's a game they've been playing since I was young. I remember I was in school, and U City High School in the 80s, and it was generally understood, and this was something promoted even by grown-ups, that black people were genetically, intrinsically tougher than white people, and that white people need to be scared if a black person's mad at them. And this is something that was promoted by people who I remember people with master's degrees telling me this crap, you know? And as a kid, I mean, I was kind of in the Kyle Rittenhouse boat. I was black, but that doesn't mean that you can't have the same interests or perspectives as another person of a different color, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. It's hard to believe, yeah. But I was like, nah, it's stupid, man. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you guys telling me this? So, like people like us who question adults saying stupid things would be, you know, targeted and insulted and told, hey, you can't say that. And they would encourage younger people to be aggressive towards us. It's something that's been going on a long time. And this is something that's very interesting. They're very offended when they see there were 3 white kids and they never really bothered anyone, but they were kind of tougher white kids. They were friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And they didn't seem like they were scared of black people, because there were 3 of the few white people in the school that I knew that were not racist. Because they weren't racist, they weren't scared of black people. Mm-hmm. So one day something happened, and there was something that some of them called him a redneck, white boy, whatever. The other guy responded. I don't know exactly what he said. I wasn't there. But I was 16 and my friends, there were 50 black guys lined up to jump these guys. I'm standing with them, and there's 50 of them. And they never actually ended up jumping them. But what the school said is, hey, they said that you guys, I don't know, they're offended by you because they were rural Americans. They wore cowboy boots. You just need to go to another school.
Wow.
So they made the kids go to Pattonville. And I'm saying, well, do you realize what you just did? And they said, what? You had a bunch, and I knew 4 or 5 of the black kids who were trying to jump them. They were a couple of them had criminal records. You just made the world more racist, and they lost it on me. I mean, I told them this. I said, you saw 50 black kids get about to jump these 3 white kids, and they never called it race. They never said it was racism. But the thing about it is that this mentality has this thing where they want white people to be scared. It's because they're racist against black people. They want to use black people as their engine for anger. And Kyle Rittenhouse was a problem. The fact is that Kyle Rittenhouse does not appear to sound racist at all, and it's driving them nuts.
Yeah, and
they don't know what to do with it.
And like I mentioned before, I hope anyway that this thing is starting to settle down somewhat.
Oh yeah, it will.
I don't pretend to speak for white people just because I'm white, and I'm certainly not going to pretend to speak for black people. But I will tell you this: black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, those that I know, and I will speak for my experiences with them. Most all of them that I know, people who, other than white people, basically are so much like me, except for the color of their skin. Their beliefs are about the same. They want things for their family. They want to improve their life. They want to make more money. They want to be able to sock away some dough and retire someday. They want to buy a nice television. They want to go on vacation. They want to live in a neighborhood where they can walk down the street. It's not white people. It's not black people. It's not Hispanic people. It's people. And most all people want things that are about the same. Now, there's going to be little variance there because of culture or beliefs or whatever. But for the most part, people are people. And until you can show racism being an issue, it's not an issue. And I'll go back to the whole Darrell Brooks thing, the guy who ran his SUV into the crowd of old folks, not all old folks, but it doesn't really matter if it was a racially motivated or not. To me, he needs to be put on trial for killing 6 people and injuring 60 plus others. Forget about why he did it. He did it.
That's very interesting you said that, because the last time I turned on the Joy Reid show, and this is where, and I kind of looked up and I found out her ratings are actually tanking, which is a promising sign. Mm-hmm. So on her show, they were comparing the 2 verdicts, which again is absurd. And then they were saying, they had a couple legal experts on, and they said, oh, well, they made it make it like, oh, it's really bad that Kyle Rittenhouse got off. And they were like, oh, well, at least they convicted these 3 guys. And I'm like, what? I mean, at least they convicted these 3 guys. These guys were racist murderers. But then she said something that really struck me. I'm like, what's wrong with this whole genre? She said, she goes, but there's something really bad about the Ahmand Arbery conviction. I go, what could be bad about it? She said the prosecutor did not bring race into the prosecution. And she says, there's something really gross about the fact that we couldn't say that we know the reason why they killed these men, that these men killed him was because of race. And then the other 2 experts goes, yes, that just shows how racist our country is. The prosecutor had to prosecute simply based on the facts and not tell everyone the real reason why they killed this guy is because he's black. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Yeah. That is maybe the worst thing I've ever heard on a TV show. I've never heard some terrible things. That's worse than anything I've ever heard Trump say.
And if you look at the statue of justice, okay, justice is a lady holding a scale with a blindfold over her eyes. Justice is supposed to be blind. Let's look at the facts only. And based on the facts presented, that's how we're going to find our verdict. And a case that I'll use, this was years and years ago, the Pope cafeteria murders. If you remember that from a long,
Yes.
long time ago. Okay.
Right.
There was a good friend of mine who has since passed away. He was selected for jury duty for that trial. And this guy was a good man, a fair man, but he was a hang 'em high type of guy. Okay. All criminals need to be tried, and if convicted, just lined up and shot. He was one of those guys, okay? And he was chosen for that trial. He was chosen as a jury, and they sequestered him for like 3 months because it went on for a long time. And when and I thought, well, shoot, Rich is going to just find these people guilty, and he's going to have them send them to the gas chamber. Well, they did find him guilty, which was a done deal, but they didn't find them guilty of first-degree murder, and none of them got the death penalty. They got, a big, long prison term where they'll never be walking in public again. But after, it was all over and Rich came back, I said, what the heck, dude? Everything I read in the newspaper it should have been obvious that these guys, this was first-degree murder. They went in there, they wanted to kill these people, they did kill these people, and they should have got the gas chamber. How come you didn't find that verdict? And he said, I didn't read the newspaper. I was sequestered. Remember? I was just given the evidence of the prosecution and the defense. And based on the information that I was given, the prosecution didn't prove first-degree murder. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, I never considered that. So he went into this with an open mind, didn't read the newspaper, didn't make preconceived notions, listened to the facts, and that's the verdict that was given, and that was a sentence that was recommended based on the facts. That's how things should work.
Well, that's why I think that it's one thing to protest the state not prosecuting something. I think the idea of protesting a jury verdict is stupid. One, you're not there in the room with them.
That's exactly right.
And two, protesting the verdict, they have to make the decision on their own. Mm-hmm. Protesting the verdict doesn't make sense because they pick the jury, and that's their job, is to make a decision, guilty or innocent.
Right.
So what, you're protesting the 12 people who weren't able to get out of jury duty? What sense does that make? Mm-hmm. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to do. I was called a couple times, but because of my job, because I traveled, they didn't put me in the pool because every time they were calling, I was on the road. I'm like, and the first time I said, I'll try to get back, but come on, man. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, and you want me to go to jury duty in 36 hours, and I'm, so they would always kick me out. But that's the whole thing. To protest jurors, to me, is absurd.
Yeah.
Because protesting people that have way more information than you, and they made the decision they made under a much more serious circumstance than you being like, well, I wanted that person to be guilty, so now I'm going to go in the streets and protest. I'm like, that's fundamentally not understanding how our system works. Mm-hmm. I can understand protesting a prosecution or conviction. Originally, the Ahmand Arbery, the first three prosecutors didn't want to prosecute. I agree with protesting that because that's messed up. Mm-hmm. And the first woman is actually getting charged.
Well, because there's some evidence of obstruction of justice, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. And that's where but those protests were a lot different than the crap that was going on in Kenosha. Mm-hmm. That's another. It's so funny, but people don't realize MSNBC is owned by Comcast. And guess who else Comcast had as an employee? Who's that? Donald Trump.
Really?
Donald Trump. Yes. Donald Trump and Joy Reid. And Joy Reid even said this one time. She goes, I don't know if she wasn't thinking about what she was saying, because this is a point I've been making about them a long time. But she was going off on Trump and his taxes. And he says, the only time we saw Trump's taxes is when it came to him working for NBC, because what people need to know that Donald Trump and I actually have the same boss, because Comcast owns NBC Universal, which owns both MSNBC and NBC.
Right.
So MSNBC, and here's another thing, and this 100% confirms, and I don't call this a conspiracy. This is just me as a media communications science graduate.
Okay.
I always held that MSNBC was actually helping Donald Trump.
How did you come to that decision?
Well, for one thing, I don't know if you heard about